How many times has your kid asked you, can we have a play date with so-and-so? It's like, soon.
Yeah.
When? The next couple of weeks from now.
Mr. Promises with his soons.
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of Milkless, we're talking about, I don't know what we're talking about. Max said he had an idea. He said it would be better if I did not know what it was. And so we're doing this together. Here we go.
All right, Matt, today I got something for you kind of special. You know how we've been working on this book?
Yeah. Purple Martin.
All right, let me just lead it off with this. So Matt wrote a book, and he's like, Max, I wrote a children's book. A little sheepish about it. I'm like, let me read this thing. I know he's a great writer. I know he's like an Emmy-nominated filmmaker. He wrote this amazing movie that was the #1 on Netflix, and I know he's a great writer. But then I was like, yeah, it's a kid's book. Is it just like a picture book? But I read this thing, and I don't think something like this exists. So it's like a little chapter book. But what it is he has this way of writing that is really hitting like the kid's point of view, which just is so amazing. And I want to talk about a few excerpts that I pulled and just hear from Matt where that came from. And just like, let's just talk about those. What it must feel like to be a kid.
Oh, man. This is a really nice surprise, man. Thanks for saying all those nice things about it. I like a little more of the story. I mean, yeah, I sent this Google Doc to Max that I had written when we were pregnant with my second daughter. I didn't want to start a new feature film script. So I wrote this book and I sent it to a couple of people, but I didn't really have a path to do anything with it. And then I sent it to Max. And I talked to some illustrators, but it was going to be like, it was very expensive to illustrate the whole book. Because one of the ideas I had was that I wanted there to be a lot of pictures, because I think that there's this like unhappy valley that my daughter has been in for a little while, where kids start to want more complex stories, but they don't want to give up on pictures. I think we take pictures away from kids too soon. And so it's like the books that she likes now have like a sketch every 8 pages, but we miss having more, But anyway, so it's going to make it, kind of prohibitively expensive to get illustrated. But then I showed it to Max, and buddy, you read it to your kids, you interviewed them, you sent me a photo of them listening to the story, which didn't have any pictures yet, but like the looks on their faces were so cool.
They were literally enthralled. They're just like, wait a minute, Matt wrote that? They're like, that's better than Harry Potter. I'm like, easy. Don't get me excited.
Like, no,
yeah, that's like the best thing I've ever.
Get me started. And so Max then spent the next, I don't know, the last 6 months basically learning how to use AI tools to create incredibly good illustrations. So it went from a Google Doc to it's going to be a book that's going to come out, depending on when this episode happens, it may be out right now.
Well, the reason I love it, and the reason we just had to do it, is when I read something like that, I remember growing up and it's like Roald Dahl. It was like, why doesn't that exist these days? There's a lot of solid chapter books, but that middle ground, 75 to 100 pages, really complex writing, not big words, but just something that an adult would find interesting. It's like a mystery with this young girl at her grandparents' house. Anyway, I love it. Let me just get into some of the imagery, and I just think it's interesting to just go through some of this stuff, and then let's just talk about these moments for kids. So, Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This is real, peeps. He doesn't know what I'm doing. All right. 3 sleeps. That's how long I was going to be here. Well, my parents, Mama and Daddos, went to a no kids allowed wedding, which, to be honest, felt like a little bit of a rude thing to have. So, where'd that come from? We didn't have kids at our wedding. What are you calling me out?
No, dude, I get why people do it. But
but from the kids' perspective, I get it.
From the kids' perspective, it sucks. And I do I really wanted. So the structure of the book is like an old film noir. It's a mystery. It's a 10, 11-year-old detective who's a girl and her dog Baba. Her name's Violet Archer, and Baba is helps her investigate things. But I really like the film noir trope because like what is common to a lot of those movies is there's this like kind of hard-boiled first person voiceover narrator, or in the books, like the old Dashiell Hammett books.
And what is film noir for those who don't know, like in a sentence?
Like think like Humphrey Bogart, Maltese Falcon, like mystery stories, private detective, kind of stylish,
slightly dark,
a little dark, yeah, but kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Like the first play I ever wrote was a noir play. It's always been a fascination to me. So anyways, I've always had this real connection to it, but I love that like it's always told from the perspective of this kind of hard-boiled, person who has a code that they live by, and they're not the biggest and the strongest, but they are clever. And I really wanted a kid to see themselves in that, and for the book to always feel like it was on their side, not the tallies, which is what in the book they call grown-ups. She's like what the tallies don't understand. ... So yeah, this is so fun. This is
so fun.
It's really nice of you.
You're the author of this insanely cool book that I'm so thankful that I got to be a part of it and help bring it to life. And so in this moment, we're talking about the story. We're not talking about the illustrations. If you want to see the illustrations, you're going to have to buy the book, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go, Maxie boy. No, but we came up with a conceit that I think is cool, which is that all the illustrations is like there will be one or two Polaroids on almost every page, and the idea is that these are photos she's taken that are like clues as she's doing the investigation. These are kind of her records, and that she's written up kind of the case file. What I love about it is that like it makes the entire experience of the story visually as from her perspective, which is also the way the book is written. So you see the world through her eyes.
All right. So I got another passage, another excerpt. So let me just say this first. It's not that I was nervous about being away from my parents exactly. And Martha, Mom, and Papa Dan are great. But when you're a kid, a lot of stuff just kind of happens to you. Decisions get made by the tallies. And the next thing you know, you're getting dropped off into a situation you've never seen before. Your only choice is to roll with it. So I think you nailed something there for me. It was like kids kind of do just get thrown into things. And I never really saw that.
Yeah.
It's like, just go. Let's go. Come on. We're doing this. We're doing that. And of course, I get my children's opinion as much as I can. But I don't know, you just said that in such a way that it was like, yeah, the kids just kind of, in a way, are along for the ride.
I remember that the first time I watched my daughter walk into elementary school when she started school, just thinking she has no idea what this is going to be like. What a leap of faith.
Yeah.
I think about that when we go to the playground. They were just like, go make a friend. Can you imagine saying that to a grown-up? They'd be like, ew, I'll be on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I remember that as a kid, just feeling like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to the grocery store now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the plot, the setup to the plot of this one is she goes for a weekend at her grandparents' house. That's Martha, Mom, and Papa Dan.
Well, here's another one. And I absolutely love this. I think you nailed something here. We don't need to go into the story. I don't want to give away too much. But so something just happened and she doesn't want to talk to her grandfather. And she says, well, maybe that's why I didn't say anything. Sometimes I worry people won't believe me about stuff just because I'm a kid. I don't have eyes and ears. And again, it's that helps me. I feel like I hear you through the writing, that it's there's nothing more insidious than when you don't believe your kid.
Yeah.
And they're telling the truth or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that happens to kids a lot, that they kind of pick up on more than we think they do. I do think all kids are little detectives in some ways. They're kind of always trying to figure shit out. So yeah, that's cool.
All right. So this one is less of a kid thing. It's more of almost you as an adult imparting wisdom because she's referencing something your dad said.
Mm.
And, I'd love to hear how you thought about this one and how this one came up. But so something scary happens and she's like, anything could happen back here. Was I feeling scared? You bet I was. But I was also feeling tough because remember, it's me and Baba out there and we're no pushovers. Dado says scared plus tough equals brave, which means you can't even be brave without being scared first. I think maybe he's onto something with that. I love that. Our kids reference that after reading it.
That's cool.
And it's something about it, the fact that it was from this story, it resonates with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Stories are a shortcut to universal human experience. And you can see yourself hopefully in the protagonist too. Yeah. I wanted her to have good, decent parents in this, but parents that make mistakes and grandparents that make mistakes. And there were pieces of like wisdom that it was like, oh, that would have been something that would have come from one of her parents. I do try to go like 1-to-1 on which ones her mama said and which ones her dad said, because I don't want to like, I don't want my, wife to read it and be like, a lot of dad wisdom in here.
This episode is brought to you by Violet Archer in the Case of the Purple Martin. It's a chapter book with illustrations on every page. You can read it to them if they're 5, 6-year-olds, but then as soon as they can read, up till 12, 13, it's an insanely good book with plot twists like worthy of an adult's attention. I love this thing. I'm so proud of Matt and Milkless of putting this thing out. So check the podcast description for a link to buy the book, or search Violet Archer on Amazon and buy it there.
Cheers.
Okay, this one was one of my favorite lines of all time. Just nail the kid thing. So, okay, but something was still bothering me. When I'd mentioned Baba sniffing around the cat door, Papa Dan had gotten this look on his face. One of those looks that tallies think us kids don't notice, but that we always catch. Here's what I think about when my wife and I read your writing. It's like, how do you think of this? Because you're one of the adults that doesn't know that they see this look on your face. So
yeah, it's the thing where like I'll feel like, man, I'm really doing a good job of not showing how stressful my workday has been, and then my daughter will just say, "Why are you mad?" And I'm like, and I don't know. I remember as a kid just feeling like I was picking up on a lot of shit, and we kind of want to think that that's like a hard truth as a parent to know that your kids are like so kind of attuned to what you're doing, because it means you gotta. It comes back to that thing about parenting where it's like probably the best thing you can do as a parent is to kind of like get your shit together and try to take care of yourself. But that's hard. So anyways, a lot of times what I was trying to do was like write this feeling that I think I've seen my daughter have, but write it in words that are probably better than she could articulate it, but that she would understand.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like trying to articulate her experience back to her, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what was so interesting about it is like, I really do think that kids have these complex feelings, but to your point, maybe they can't express them. And when they hear this writing, they can feel it has to help because you're nailing a childhood feeling or an adult feeling, but saying it in a kid's way that I don't think has been done before.
It was fun to try to like write it in words that I knew like even a pretty little kid would be able to understand. But yeah, I just think, man, I have these moments. I think throughout the day, we all forget like so much of parenting is about like logistics and getting them where they need to be and whatever. But I'll have these moments of like watching my 17-month-old just get really invested in a task, which might be like emptying the laundry and then refilling the laundry. Or I'll watch my 6-year-old just like singing a song quietly to herself in the bathtub. And in those moments, I realized like there's a whole internal life happening there alongside mine in my house. And I feel so close to them in those moments. Bizarrely, in those moments where I see them truly as their own separate human being, I also feel like so close and connected to them. And so I think I'm like always kind of like yearning for that and like trying to do that as much as I can, because it feels so easy to operate not that way the majority of the time when there's like shit to get done, And so I think with the book, it was like really trying to get into that internal experience and really make it real in a way that would hopefully be like interesting to both a kid and a grown up. Cause I pictured the whole time I was writing it, I pictured reading it to my kids, and like, I think kids will hopefully read this on their own too. But like in my head, a parent was reading it to a kid and they were getting to talk about it while they were doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And my 8-year-old has read it, loves it. So it works that way too. It's just, I love it. I think it's great the way you've done it. Like I've read a lot of the stuff my son is reading, and it doesn't give the kids enough credit. It's like, oh, these must be young readers. They must not be able to handle this. And this is not using big words, but it's using like really beautiful language that's like, why can't they read something really tasty? Going into one more. But suddenly the whole picture went blurry, and I realized there were tears in my eyes. I was out of leads and out of time. Sometimes no matter how much I tell myself everything's going to be okay in the end, it's still hard to imagine ever smiling again. It's like that moment right after you accidentally let go of a balloon, and there it is floating slowly upward, just an inch out of reach. but you know it's gone. Might as well be a mile high. That's what I felt at breakfast as I ate my eggs without really tasting them. It's like, I can tell the kids, like, oh, this is just one of those times, but like sometimes having story to draw on, to be like, remember Violet Archer, this sort of rock bottom, like it's very easy to sort of empathize with this protagonist and like feel it.
Yeah.
Every kid can relate to this feeling.
That's cool that it feels that way. I mean, I do think like the reason I got into movies in the first place was I remember seeing some movies that made me feel like I was not alone in some experiences that I had not really been able to like verbalize to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's really great to recognize yourself in a character in a story. And some of that stuff, like I still feel at times like it's hard to imagine smiling again. Like as much as I know intellectually that I will.
Yeah, when you get down like that.
Yeah. And as a kid, I remember like that's scary because you don't have the like frontal cortex to be like, but you will. Like this too shall pass. You're just in it,
Right.
Let
me keep going here. So here's one where I feel like this is more like imparting wisdom, and this is where I like when the Matt Naylor sneaks in. This is more like slightly advanced, but I think kids could have this, but it's quite wise. There's this tricking thing that happens when you've been hoping for something for a long time. You start to imagine what it will be like when it finally happens. You picture the perfect moment where all your dreams finally come true. High fives, fireworks, the crowd goes wild. You got to be careful with that stuff because when the real moment comes, it's never quite the way you imagined it. You can end up blaming life for what it isn't instead of just living it as it is. Like, it's beautiful.
That is a thing that I struggle with and that I've seen my daughter struggle with too. She wants to create like the perfect version of a moment. She really has it in her head. It's like the challenge with like birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that, right? It's like they got the perfect vision and then when it's not quite that way, it can be really crushing.
But I think it's different like if you read it like this.
Yeah.
As opposed to like me telling them,
yeah,
I'll tell you a thing or two.
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, there is, I think, a thing. I'm not talking about this book specifically now, but the idea of books and stories in general, where if a character is portrayed in a book or a play or a movie, they're kind of immediately lent value. Like this person is worth telling a story about.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to write this character, Violet Archer, like she's super smart and she's super resourceful and she's like got a real backbone. And so I hope that for kids, it'd be like somebody that would be like, she's cool, but oh, she also gets scared, but oh, she also gets sad, but that's okay. Like that's just part of the kid. That's kid life, I guess.
That's what's great is like, there's also all these moments where this is obviously written by a 12-year-old, but then it's like, wait a minute, the writing is like an adult movie or something. I don't know. It's just really, really
an
cool.
Adult film.
Yeah, an like adult film. Rated R. No, but like this is also one of my favorite parts is like, so right there, halfway into my seat, I blurted out, "When can we see Martha Mom and Papa Dan again?" I caught Dados by surprise, and he just said, "Soon." Dados is the best, but you can't let Tallies get away with answers that aren't really answers. Great, I responded. When? Dados smiled the way he smiles when I'm being a little difficult, but in a way he secretly respects. Mama turned to Martha Mom. They know better than to leave the planning up to Dados and Papa Dan. What are you doing next weekend? I mean, it's like, there's so many layers there. It's like, it has adult themes of like, the moms with the calendars. It has the themes of like, it's just true. How many times has your kid asked you, can we have a play date with so-and-so? It's like, soon.
Yeah.
When? The next couple of weeks from now. Like, it almost gives them power.
Mr. Promises with his soons.
It's great.
Yeah, I feel like she's got to feel like that sometimes because I always intend to do it, but it doesn't always happen.
Well, I think what's great about this is like, you have that self-awareness to be like, when you kind of weirdly talk shit about the adults, the Tallies, it's kind of true. It's things we could do a little better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking shit about myself. It's like, it's like kids are really difficult and that is like undeniable. And they're all in, they're not all the way developed, but we're no picnic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody's any try living with somebody. Nobody's a fucking cakewalk. It's just, they got to deal with us too.
Like this one. Papa Dan got down on one knee, so he was right at my level. I wish Tallies did that more. It's like, I should get down on one knee more. How did you know? Like, I don't know. Like, that's why I love it. And I know that I'm plugging hard, but it's not. It's because I'm obsessed with this book, and I really could give two shits about a book you wrote. Like, if it was a shitty book, I'd be like, "This is great, man." Like,
let's keep getting that podcast done.
that's a cool book, man. Like, yeah, that'll happen someday for you. The only reason I'm so bullish on it is because it literally blew my cock off when I read it. So I think it's so cool.
Man, thanks for saying that. It is, I think I can say it's my favorite thing I've ever written. Something about it just, I don't know if it's the best thing I ever wrote, but it's the most fun I've ever had writing something. And when I got to the end of it, normally you get to the end of writing something, and if you don't feel like you totally ruined your original idea, you're like, that was a success. But this kind of came out how I wanted it to. And it still wouldn't be anything if you hadn't believed in it and then spent a lot of time making it real. So it's awfully nice of you. It's awfully nice of you to do this too. I hope it's not boring for people, but we like this book. So, check it out.
I really do think that this is something special, and I don't know.
Well, here's the other thing. We've reached the point in the podcast where we either got to do this or like start selling like ball shavers.
8-minute abs.
For your baby. 8-minute baby abs. So this one, at least we actually, we really care about this one.
Brought to you by Violet Archer. Come on, solve a little.
Read a little. And I'm like a third of the way into writing the second one. This character's I feel like she's got more stories. And they're fun to write. Yeah, let's fun.
What do we got? We got one every few months.
That's ambitious. I think we could do like 3 a year. I think we could do 3 of these books a year.
So let's do it.
That's a target. Let's go. Well, we hope you like it. We worked real hard on it. We spent a lot of time.
A lot of time.
All right. There you go. Thanks for doing this, Max. I appreciate it. I mean, well, it's your book too. So, let's roll.
This episode of Milkless is brought to you by Violet Archer in the case of the Purple Martin. Thank you. Bye.